Welcome to Unbiased and On the Fence. I'm Shane. Thank you guys so much for joining. I know a lot of people have been waiting to have Candace Craw-Goldman back. How are you doing, Candace?
Oh my gosh, I'm doing so well. It's springtime here on the prairie, and I've got a house full of grandchildren and all kinds of exciting, fun things going on, and I'm great. How are you doing, Shane?
I've been doing really good. I love this time of the year. It's it's just so refreshing, the newness of it again.
It absolutely is fun to watch the flowers come up, and that special green color that only happens now. That it deepens later on in the summer, but that spring green color is just everywhere. It's wonderful.
Oh, is that what it was? I've been looking. I'm like, man, that is so green. I'm wondering if our eyes are changing or whatever. But it's greener than I ever remember it. So maybe it still is a little bit there. So maybe in the summertime we'll get the spring green still of what we're used to. But it's been like really neon looking to me, like traveling and looking at these fields and stuff.
You know what I think's going on too? You probably are getting an extra amount of rain down in Oklahoma where you are, just like we are in Kansas. We have an abundance of rain.
Oh,
Sorry,
yeah.
here's the train saying hello while I'm talking about the rain. But it's kind of like a rainforest out there right now. Everything's very happy.
Yeah, and the leaves even seem shinier than usual. I'm like, man, those
Yeah.
leaves are. I've seen house plants like that, but they've been really shiny out just in nature.
Well, yeah, some of that's because you're definitely living in the new earth right now, my friend.
It feels like it sometimes, that's for sure.
Sure does.
Okay, so we were going to talk about Notre Dame and how that ties in with so many things, right?
Yes, we are. So this is crazy. All of it's crazy. And I'm so excited to do this show with you today, Shane. But what we're going to talk about today and the information that I'm going to bring isn't by any stretch of the imagination a complete look at what's going on here. As a matter of fact, it's just a little deeper of a first look, right? So
Right.
things that I would like to talk about and I would like to ask your audience and hope that they share back, is help us look at these connections here, because many of us in the quantum healing community instantly were aware of this connection of the burning of the cathedral. All of that happening, of course, on April 15th, which was Dolores Cannon's birthday, the beginning of Worldwide Regression Week, also Beltane, other things going on. And for those of you out there who don't know, Dolores Cannon had a very special connection with Nostradamus by
Mm-hmm.
writing 3 volumes of books. And so I want to talk about all of that, plus what's coming up in sessions since the event.
Yeah, I do want to talk about those books since everything kind of so much stems from them. There is so much clarification within those books of what people thought things meant and what they actually meant, and so she gets to have this conversation with Nostradamus and really get to figure things out and how he saw things, and it was really interesting, very, very interesting. A must read, I think.
I think you're right. And I haven't read the entire series myself, although all 3 of them have been sitting on my shelf for a while. And let me tell you why, and let me tell you what I know about Dolores and Nostradamus and what's been coming up. So the first thing is, one of the reasons that I haven't read the 3 volumes was out of the advice from Dolores Cannon herself. And that might sound a little strange to people out there, but I got to know her from 2008 to her death in 2014. And when people would bring up the predictions of Nostradamus, she was very dismissive. She was dismissive of her entire work, really. I mean, she wasn't dismissive of the events. She wasn't dismissive of the incredible adventure that she had, the incredible thing that happened with their connection and their communication. Not at all. She was dismissive of the information and the continuing of the focusing on some of the prophecies that she believed we've averted since we started waking up. So when people would say, well, what about this in Nostradamus and this volume, and when you worried about that? And she was like, basically, she was saying, hey, everyone, this was old news. If you want to read something, go to the Three Waves, go to the Convoluted series. She didn't really talk about this very much, but there's a lot of buts there. Okay.
Right.
So for me personally, one of the biggest, most profound experiences I ever had regarding Dolores Cannon to this day, and there's been a lot of them, was the day when I happened to be in Arkansas, getting ready to go to her memorial service. I mean, so this is after her death. And at that time, there wasn't a lot of places to stay in Arkansas. And at that time, actually, one of the places I could stay, believe it or not, was the sofa in her house. And I mean, I'm in her house and I'm in awe of just even being there, right? I've been in offices and things like that, but I really, until after her death, I hadn't been in her home. And me being there, and I feel, you know, it was practically a holy place for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I got to see her desk, and I got to see her kitchen, and I got to see the lounge chair where she wrote and talked. And I slept on that sofa. And let me tell you what, that one night that I slept there was probably the most active night of dreams and visions I've ever had in my entire life.
Oh, wow. I bet.
I mean, it was so full. There was so much going on, and I could talk about that event right there all night long, but I won't. But I'll talk to you about one particular dream vision that I woke up from. And that was, I had seen the sofa was near to her work desk where she had, and she was so messy. I loved her so much. She had stuff up everywhere. It reminded me a little bit of myself, you know. I mean, there was piles of stuff. The piles were very neat, but there were certainly piles and stacks of stuff here and there. And a lot of them were manuscripts and notes. And I was just like this. I mean, I didn't rifle through them or anything, but I'm, you know, looking at them in awe, just feeling so blessed to even be in this zone where she worked. But one of the things she had on was near her desk was a great big movie poster. And the movie poster was Nostradamus. Nostradamus movie was that. I mean, she didn't have memorabilia of a lot of things up and around. She had very kitschy knickknacks and family stuff around. But here was this Nostradamus movie poster. Well, that was interesting to me. The other thing that was interesting to me was she had a piece of black obsidian on her desk right there, which is what Nostradamus used in his scrying technique.
Oh, wow.
To connect with Dolores herself all those hundreds of years into the future. So for those of you who don't know it, not only did he write these quatrains, in some of the stories about how this was for him when people were writing about his life, he says this. He says, when they asked him, how did you get some of this? And he said, well, some in just meditation and contemplation. And he said, but I had a lot of help from spirits from the future.
Wow.
Who is that? That's Dolores, right? And so Dolores, even in her books, comes across one of the autobiographies that he is writing about where he's coming into contact with spirits in the future. She's reading about herself.
Wow, that's amazing.
Right? Crazy stuff, right?
That's awesome.
Right? So in this dream that I'm, you know, it's like partly out-of-body experiences, partly a dream, partly a vision. She's coming from her office right over to the little daybed sofa where I'm sleeping. And she's with a man. And she says, Candace, I want you to meet somebody. And I'm like, I'm so stunned about it all. And it's Nostradamus. And she said, now, what's important for you to know is not so much what we wrote in these books. She said, what's important for you to know is how we made our connection, how we communicated. That's what you should focus on. And then the whole thing went, it was gone. So that happened in spring of 2015 for me. And that sort of thing is just sitting there, right? And I've thought of it, of course, with multiple other things over all of these years. But then comes this year and Worldwide Regression Week, the second year of it, Dolores Cannon's birthday, 2015. I actually connect with beautiful Patricia Gruchen's BQH QHHT practitioner who lives in the Netherlands, ready to do a live show. Can't make anything work with Zoom. I can't stream to Facebook or to YouTube Live, excuse me. I don't know why. I've done it a million times, or at least 1,000. And finally I say, well, Patricia, I don't know why, but let's just record the show and I'll upload it later. It just won't be live. And she said, well, that's okay. Well, I know now why, because part of this show, which was supposed to focus on her book, of course, this was, one of the events we were doing for the session. We spend part of that time talking about Notre Dame and the fire. And what I didn't want to do, since this was Patricia's time, I didn't want to co-opt her time. So pre-recording it allowed us to discuss whether or not she was okay with that.
Right.
So that was the first indication that, okay, there's some interesting things going on here. And of course, their connection and that it happened on Dolores' birthday, there's no coincidence there for me, none whatsoever. It's just, okay, well, what are we supposed to take from that? And so I've been very observant about what's been happening since. And that's what we're here today to talk about. And I'd like to start by asking your community something, because this is almost research too, and I'll be happy to look at the comments, later and everything.
What's great about this is it's like a think tank here. You've got all these great people, and when we get together and put our heads together, you'd be amazed at the connections people make. So this is awesome, and it's live, so I can monitor it here. Let me pull my screen over. I haven't been watching you guys, so sorry if I missed anything. Please put @unbiased and on the fence, just the way my name is written, for it to show up red for me, and I'll try not to miss you. Okay. So for your response to this, you can just put it in all caps. I think that'll make it easy, because some people might not know how to do the @ thing. And then, all right, so here we go. Let's do this. First question.
So the first question, and really the main question I have, the one that makes the most sense to me, because I'm more and more focusing, as you probably are, so many of your community is focusing on, and that is your intuitive abilities, our other senses. So my question to you is, what was your absolute initial impression? Forget about what anyone else has said, or what you've read, or what analysis you came up, or what news bites you saw. Notre Dame Cathedral is up in flames, or you see that spire burning and falling down. What is your reaction, and what emotional reaction are you having? I would love to know. I'll start by telling you mine. I'm looking at it. I've been there a number of times. As an artist, my first thought is, wow, I wonder what precious art is being destroyed. And at the same time, of course, who's in there and trying to maybe save the art, or what people have been hurt. But after I learned that really neither of those happened, or even before then, my reaction was extremely neutral. It was just even keel like that. Example, when the Trade Center, the World Trade Center came down, I was living in Pennsylvania. I was near the third plane going down. The emotions going through me for that were off the chart. Fear and loosh and all that kind of stuff, right? But for watching this, and I also didn't particularly feel like it was, a terrorist attack or anything. I didn't get that sense right away. Now, some people have, so I'm curious to what your community response is. What did you people out there feel when you saw what was going on in Notre Dame?
Well, while we give people time to respond, I'll give you my response.
Please.
So, yeah, my initial thing was, I wonder what this is about. Like, I knew it was more than just an accident or something like that. I knew it was maybe symbolic or something. But yeah, I didn't even really go look into it. Like, my daughter came and told me about it, and I'm like, oh, really? And I was just kind of like, I thought that, and then I thought, give it some time to come out. And I didn't even go look at it. I wasn't really even pulled to it at all. Like I would normally be like, oh my God, what's going on or whatever. And then of course concerned about like what you said, just the loss of the artwork and, did anyone get hurt? Of course, concerns like that. But yeah, I felt awfully neutral for it. And I kind of thought it's because, there wasn't a loss of life. I thought, maybe that's why I feel so neutral about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's lots and lots of reaction. Even in our quantum healing community, there's a lot of different reactions. And I've got a document pulled up where we've been discussing some of this and some of the different interesting things that people are saying in our community.
Yeah, one person saying, didn't really feel much. I didn't want to feed into the crap. Deep state at it again. No real feeling. That's sort of, yeah. That's weird that we've become numb to, whatever's going on sometimes,
A little bit.
A little bit.
But might I suggest our intuition may be spot on here.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than, if something of real preciousness and value is destroyed in front of us, we as humans typically react in a very strong way, especially if that precious thing, say, I don't know, for me, Dolores's house was on fire or something. I mean, I might go, oh my gosh, and I might have a really emotional response to that. But here is this, this cathedral, this centuries old cathedral. And I was surprised myself, but I was surprised at my response, but I also really tapped into it because I'm watching this and I'm going, okay, no real upset here. No, nothing really. And it provided the opportunity to really give my own internal guidance an opportunity to let me know how I felt about this without being swayed by anybody else's opinion yet.
Right.
Of what was going on. And I think that right there is an interesting way that some of us are now living our lives, right?
Yeah.
So that's
definitely.
That's one thing. And then looking into it a little later, I found out that, some really fascinating things. Number one, they removed, for those people who've been there, they may know this, that the cathedral itself were protected by these gargoyles that leaned down like this over, and that was their protection. And these gargoyles had been taken off and put into a secure location.
How convenient.
Yeah, not long before all of this went up.
Yeah, I think just days before or something.
Yeah, right? And much of the artwork had been secured away anyway because of some of the construction going on. Some of the most precious things were in underground vaults, and they typically and are there a lot. The Catholic Church is very famous for that.
Yeah.
Including in the Vatican, which I'm sure you've talked with others about what's going on there in their catacombs down there. So there was that. So the whole idea, and even some of the beautiful rose windows weren't destroyed. So it was very, very interesting. So what was destroyed, right? The spire. The spire was destroyed. And the way that church was constructed, brilliantly, it kind of had an outer structure and an inner structure.
Right.
Construction. So the outer was the one. Now look how symbolic that is in so many different ways.
So it was the outer that burned?
Right.
Oh, I see.
And and this is actually how Dolores starts talking to me. So I have actually a channeled message to share with you and your audience, because I sat down to get my guidance from her and my team. What do you have to say about all this? But here's my favorite part about this channeling from Dolores. Half of it's about you, Shane.
Really? Awesome.
You. I was so touched by this. So even though there was all of these things to say about Notre Dame and the cathedral, I got the most emotionally excited about you, what you're doing in the world, and our work as quantum healers. So I'll definitely want to read that here coming up. But
okay.
So yeah, if you think about it, what actually fell down was, it wasn't really the facade, but it was the outer shell with the very phallic symbol
Right.
of the spire, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The male, the patriarchal, the control, the outer shell, the thing that anymore, man.
Yeah.
And it was the crumbling of that, this, this very male-centric thing, very connected to control of the people, very symbolic of that, and patriarchy, protection. So some of that actually kind of worked, right?
Oh, that's crazy.
Right? Yeah.
So the thing is that while you're talking about this, just recently I came across an old video. I don't know why I was watching it, but I had this weird synchronicity one day where my daughter had burnt some toast, and I had smelled the smell of burning. I went to investigate, and she said, "Oh, I just burned some toast or whatever." And I was like, "Okay." So then the song starts playing "Burning Down the House" in my head, right? And I just happened to I had just kind of asked the universe that day. I'm like, "It would be cool if you give me a cool Mandela effect or something." So when the song starts playing, I'm like, "Let me go see if there's a Mandela effect I can notice." So then I didn't notice anything, but I start looking into the lyrics and what they mean and everything. And I came across this article that's like, look, if you're trying to find deep meaning in the song, you're looking in the wrong place. But if you really, really want to find deeper meaning in this, Rumi talked about burning down the house as being like your ego, burning down your ego. And I'm like, what? You got to be kidding me. Burnt toast leads me to the smell leads me to the song playing in my head, leads me into investigating it. And it kind of ties into what you're talking. And that video just came back up, and I watched that part again. So it's like, oh my gosh, it was like I was being reminded right before the show with you. That's it's a confirmation for me.
It sure is. And some of these kinds of synchronicities have been coming up in several BQH sessions out there, which, if we have time, I'll be going through and talking about.
Absolutely.
Some people who they weren't there for that at all. Some people were having sessions that day or shortly thereafter finding out about it. Mm-hmm. And, we already knew to have a session on Dolores's birthday was going to be kind of amazing anyway, so keep that in mind, everybody. April 15th, if you can ever facilitate or have a session on that day, years to come. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I want to do is talk a little bit about, so Nostradamus, Nostradamus, right? Notre Dame, Nostradamus, right? There's, again, no coincidences there. So Nostradamus's name was Michel de Nostradam. And so the Latinized version of that is Nostradamus, which is, very, very close to Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. And for those of you all who don't know it, Notre Dame is not unusual in that it was co-opted by the Catholic Church as a sacred site because it's ley lines and it's a power center. It's a power mm-hmm. place. It's a vortex. Mm-hmm. And there was, a goddess temple there before. As a matter of fact, I think, let me look at my notes and I can tell you exactly. All right, so here it is. The ancient city of Lutetia, mm-hmm. Paris, that comes from, right? Mm-hmm. Today is known as the city of Paris. It was named after a tribe of Celts known as the Parisi, with two I's at the end, during the Roman era of the 1st to 4th century, basically, of course, the Catholic Church, right? So even more interesting facts. The original statue of Isis was preserved in the Abbey of Saint Germain until the year 1514, when the Archbishop of Meaux, or Meaux, M-E-A-U, had it destroyed. So the Catholic Church is famous for moving in and taking over these power spots, taking over the rituals, taking over the symbolism, co-opting or shifting.
All over the world, yeah.
Absolutely. So again, what are we talking about? We're talking about patriarchy and control, right? And actually in this book, which I'm going to reference this book more than once, Dolores had three of these Nostradamus books. And again, what she did basically with him was she connected with him and said, what does this quatrain mean? What does this quatrain mean? What does this one mean? This wasn't her analyzing. This wasn't her thoughts. Every other Nostradamus book out there is.
Right.
Somebody's thoughts about what they thought he meant. Not these. These are her just saying, well, what did you mean with that one? Right? So that's important to know about this. But I want to start by just saying that the Catholic Church was very worried about Nostradamus, always has been.
Well, isn't that why he wrote the way he wrote too?
Yes.
He did it. He wanted it to be cryptic, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So do you know that he wrote these? They're called centuries, and 2 or 3 volumes. He wrote them in the year 1555.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And do you know that they've, get this, never been out of print?
Wow.
Right? So something interesting there too, right?
Yeah.
Now the naysayers, the skeptics out there will say things like, they're so vague that they don't mean anything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's a valid observation. Truly is. I would have it myself. But there's a few things I want to talk about specifically about that today. But I want to read here that the centuries were, and this is Dolores writing this sentence I'm getting ready to say. Nostradamus' centuries were condemned by Pope Pius VI in 1781 and have occasionally been the center of ecclesiastical controversy ever since. The Vatican forbade the book because it was, quote, found to contain a prophecy of the abolition of the papal authority.
Oh, wow.
Right? Now, to me, that sentence is important. And I want to move to this really interesting thing. So any of you people who like to do research on the internet, you will find that there are astrologers out there who have taken one in particular, one quatrain of Nostradamus's in particular, and they've said Nostradamus himself predicted this fire in Notre Dame, right? And I read this, and I read it 3-4 times preparing for our interview today. Mm-hmm. I read it different ways, and I'm even thinking, well, that kind of sounds right. That I can see how they would say that. I could see how they would make that connection and why. And then, guess what I did? I went and looked up the exact quatrain right here. And guess what? Nostradamus says something completely unexpected. So I would like to share that right now.
Oh, I've already got chills, and I don't even know what it is.
Right? Okay, so this is from volume 2 of Nostradamus by Dolores Cannon, of course. And the century is from, and it's weird, the way he writes these are centuries, 1st century, 2nd century, 3rd century writings. It's a naming convention. I'm not exactly sure why, but from the 1st century writings -51. It's on, for those of you out there who may have the book, it's on page 29. So here is the English version of the quatrain that some of the other astrologers out there are quoting. Now, to you astrologers out there who are listening right now or in the future, or who referenced this quote, please know a couple of things. Number one, I know nothing about astrology. I'm not claiming to at all.
Nor do I.
Number two, there's some really interesting astrological connections between Dolores and Nostradamus. I bet Shane would reference a link to a show that was done in 2015 about that. Those two charts laid on top of each other, which there's still one of my own videos out there that it's a really long video, but it's really fascinating. It's astounding, the chart connections between the two of them. Again, I didn't know then, and I really know nothing about that now. This is not a judgment of any of your evaluations whatsoever, but it's exactly, it turns on its head some of what I have read out there. So yeah, in the spirit of open-minded looking at information from all ways, please pay attention to this part. So here it is. The head of Aries, Jupiter, and Saturn. Eternal God, what changes? Then the bad times will return again after a long century. What turmoil in France and Italy. Now, apparently, and I hope I get this right, but I believe so, apparently right now, and you astrologers out there probably know this, and I bet there's some astrologers in your audience listening right now. There's something astrologically significant about Aries, Jupiter, and Saturn that day on April 15th, right? So on the face of it, makes some sense, right? Makes some sense, right? But listen to what is actually said in this book. So the very first thing Dolores says is, the translators thought this quatrain might have an error in the typesetting. And the woman who is, of course, communicating for Nostradamus in trance says, he says such a thing is possible. That is one of the hazards in dealing with the printing profession. Dolores says, in the book, he has a question mark after eternal God. What changes? They think this is an error, that it's supposed to be an exclamation mark, and they changed it. And then here's what B says. He says it should be an exclamation point, because he's exclaiming what changes have been wrought. He was not asking what changes, question mark, because the changes were very evident to him in his vision. He's trying to pin the quatrain down for me. He says the turmoil in France and Italy refers to, well, in the 20th century term, it's for the workers' strikes. Now, when I'm first reading that, I'm thinking about the Yellow Jackets, right? And I'm like, what?
Right.
But stay tuned.
Okay.
Since they didn't have a phenomenon in his time, he's allowing me to use a 20th century term for it. 3 major world leaders, okay? 3 major world leaders represented by Aries, Jupiter, and Saturn confer together, making an agreement to improve the lot of the world in general. And things will appear to be good for a long while. Oh, goodness. Do you hear that?
No.
Okay, good, because they're doing some construction, something right outside the window. Anyway, he says that some of the changes are communistic type changes. The workers will realize once again they've gotten the short end of the stick, and they will start trouble to try to institute some changes. He's not able to communicate that very well in this quatrain. The main picture keep coming across is the color green. It's interesting. Is this something that has not happened yet? Dolores asked. He says it's in the process of happening. He gives me the image again, Aries, Jupiter, and Saturn in association with, and this is where it all kind of falls apart as far as it having anything to do today, Roosevelt, Churchill, and Stalin.
Oh, wow.
So we're talking about history, right? We're talking about history. Now listen to what Dolores says. The translator thought he was talking about a conjunction of Aries, Jupiter, and Saturn, which I think just happened, like on that day or near that day.
Isn't that
Where
wild?
the fire went down, right? And this is what B says. That's a very natural thing for them to think, because he wrote it like that to throw the hounds off the scent. And I see that he is referring to the priests. In French, it says the head of Aries. He says chief or leader or head would be close enough. He says, in all appearances, the efforts to translate these have been sincere, just like they are today. The efforts that the astrologers are using, the efforts are incredibly sincere. They're just misguided. So Nostradamus himself says, it didn't have this quatrain didn't have anything to do with that church. That's how I read this. Now, I find that fascinating.
Definitely.
So it was after that I set my book down, found myself a quiet place, and said, okay, Dolores, what do you have to say? So now I'm ready to share that if you want to hear it.
Oh, I can't wait. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, gosh, because we've been talking, well, I've been talking. Let's not kid ourselves. You've been listening and I've been just prattling on and on.
Oh no, I can't have everybody be mad at me if I start chiming in at this point. This is getting juicy. So
Okay. So for everyone who knows, I do hear from Dolores. I very rarely do any real-time channeling. Maybe I will someday, but I find that first thing in the morning after I just woke up, I can hear her the clearest. And I also do, it's almost an automatic writing. If I have a keyboard in front of me, it's very direct. And I write what I hear, and I'm so to the side of what it is that after I'm done, very often I have hardly any idea of what I've written. I have to go back and really read it. I'm not like some channelers out there that can really do this while I'm talking, especially not live like this.
Oh, I totally get it.
I don't know if I ever will be. So forgive me for the reading aspect of this, but here's what Dolores has to say. Okay. Excuse me. So she too talks about the double. As a matter of fact, she starts out by saying the double constructive nature of the architectural structure. So Dolores says, what might be interesting to note is that from my own perspective, and of course she means now in spirit realm, I can see Earth versions where Notre Dame had no fire. Okay, so the Mandela effect in action, right?
Oh yeah, totally.
Right?
Yeah.
I see Earth versions where the fire completely decimated the building.
Wow.
On the timeline you are currently focused upon and discussing today, a portion of the structure has been destroyed. Each of you listening might find yourself curious and ask your own self why. Why have you decided to experience this timeline, this particular version?
Wow.
An interesting way of looking at it, right? This version had no loss of human life. This version had no to minimal loss of precious artifacts. So then she says, what truly then is lost? From my own perspective, your choice to experience this version is to be held within the energy of gradual awakening and remaining supportive to others who are only just now beginning to awaken. And while for each of you, the answer is slightly different, and yet from a collective sense, humanity has a collective response to the version you wish to experience, which is kind of why I started asking the question to begin with. What was your reaction, right?
That's very cool. So it's almost like, that's the gauge on the meter of the timeline we're on.
Isn't
right?
it?
Yeah, that's how I'm seeing it. Like, it's just indicative of what timeline you're on. And then we've got this one where loss of life was minimal or none, and then we've sort of tore away some of the old structure that's holding us back.
Yeah.
We're trying to take the place of other things, and so that's beautiful. A balancing, if you will.
Yeah. She goes on to say, the cathedral was, and has been for quite some time, something you might call a marker, not only marking the energetic aspects of the ley lines, but a marker of human perspective at any given time. The French people, those in Paris, call it point zero. They call Notre Dame point zero. And I'll go back to my own self right now to describe that. So basically, if you are in Paris and you're giving directions to anybody, they start from there.
Oh, wow.
They find their entire existence in that city from that point.
Wow. That's
and it's
amazing.
All point zero.
That's crazy.
There's no coincidences, right?
Wow.
No accident. They measure distances and travel to anywhere in the nearby vicinity from this point. The name is significant. Gosh, I'm buzzing all over myself. From this point, all things start. From this point, all distance is measured. From this point, humanity can contemplate its position of consciousness expansion and the lens through which it sees and evaluates this expansion.
Chills. This is awesome. This is amazing. You really see how everything's all like connected. You know what I mean? It's crazy, but I see it.
My hair follicles, curly as they are buzzing.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Okay. The spire was destroyed. The main building was not. The spire, the phallic symbol, the most visible, physically tangible architectural element, has been destroyed. This speaks to, and even remnants of the building, speaks to the vibration of humanity now. For while the building, representative of the house of Christian religion, still stands, and humans plan to repair and renovate the building as it stands right now, the patriarchal element, the phallic symbol representing control and domination, is simply not there. They're planning on rebuilding it, but right now, point zero, it's not there.
Right.
Okay. The reason this event was able to play out this way was the numbers of humans who've woken up to at least part of the truth of who they really are.
It's beautiful.
Right? And how and why we're choosing this path of being part of the helpers of the awakening, right? That's why we haven't ascended. That's why we're still here. That's why we're still talking. That's why we still have this show going on.
But progress is being made, and it's clear, you know?
Yeah. Okay, so, and this is where she just shocked me, because she knew I was gathering notes for the show today. And she said, and it is at this point I would like to speak to Shane directly.
Okay.
I'm so excited. Mr. Robinson, I would like to commend you. I'm not a crier, but oh my goodness. Your heart signature has reached the upper levels of the 4th and 5th dimensional planes. And wonderful light patterns are replicated and assist the trajectory of the 3D human and 3D Earth into these planes with every show you broadcast. Every replay that is watched afterwards also increases this energy signature and its reach. I would like to make 2 significant points about your particular style of broadcast. Here you got Dolores as a critic. She's gonna talk to you about your show.
Awesome.
I can't tell you how excited I was watching all this come out. Your approach and perspective to disseminating information and connecting community is truly refreshing. It demonstrates that sensationalism is not required to nurture a healthy audience. And that is the first point I want to make. Well done.
Thank you.
Your focus on supporting others and nourishing community are genuine, heart-based efforts that are appreciated and celebrated. Which brings me to point 2, which is to state what is obvious to many, but possibly not to you personally as yet. You, Mr. Robinson, are an example of the new divine masculine in action. Keep it going. This work is tremendously important.
That's
And we're
awesome.
not done. We're not done. That's just part of what she has to say to you. But I bet everyone in the chat room is saying, yeah, that's our match.
They're clapping and stuff. Thank you
Yes,
guys. You guys
that's
are
our
sweet.
match. And that's what I was doing when I was here. All right. We've got actually 4 more paragraphs.
Okay.
So here we go. I'm sorry, I keep clearing my throat.
Oh, no
Now
problem.
on to your work as a quantum healing facilitator specifically. As you began opening up to the material, the concepts and the possibilities, you began to simultaneously expand and open up your own energy field. And that began a creation of a vortex, a sort of portal between realms. And while all quantum healers do this to a greater or lesser extent, depending on a variety of factors, including vibrational energy, soul contracts, your opening, your portal to the higher realms has been, to put it mildly, noticed. This portal acts as a beacon of sorts. It's a beacon to future clients, also to beings and energetics who have interest in connecting in sessions. Your participation and energy within a session can literally help to make these connections occur, and after they occur, they are primed and ready to repeatedly occur without the need for a facilitator or trance state. I have been making an appearance in many sessions and meditations lately with a particular message. I bring it to you, other quantum healers, as well as to your audience and community, that just recently, with the energetic shifts, more help and connection to the unseen realms is available. If you could see what I see, it's so beautiful. Standing at the ready are energies and aspects of your own self ready to assist and come online. Being aware of this and having an excitement can help draw it in, bring them closer, help them become more available to you, to assist you in your life. Now, I've said this before and I will say it again, that quantum healing sessions of any kind are not the only way these connections are made and can happen. They can happen in many ways. But that being said, many can accelerate these connections with sessions and benefit in other ways from this type of exploration. And she once again bids you thank you. And that's it.
Oh, I love you, Dolores. Thank you so much. She's so sweet. Yeah, her writing style, I enjoy reading her books because you feel like you're with her rather than you're just reading a book. You feel like you're hanging out with her and she's telling you, like just like she would lecture. It's that same style. So, yeah, I feel like I've spent hours with her, even though I've never met her, and I'm sure she's around helping me all the time. So.
Indeed, she is, and well, that was just so much fun to talk about. So much fun, and so anyway, yeah, there's more stories of different things, different ideas of what was going on with the church or with the cathedral, and we can talk about those more if you want.
Sure.
Well, I'm happy to do that. So let's see. Again, I'm kind of looking at, I was hoping I could print this out, but it had to stay on my screen. So here's something really interesting. Do you know how one of the ways that they put this fire out?
No, what was it?
They used a robot.
Oh, wow, really?
They used a robot, and the robot, I mean, it was very much like, so it was basically...
was it like holding a hose or...
I'm losing the word I'm trying to come up with. Anyway, I'll read you what I have here. It's the Colossus robot. It's a robotics company that describes its robot as 2.5 feet wide, 5.25 feet long, and can carry 1,200 pounds and be operated from almost 1,000 feet away. So it's controlled using a joystick. It's remote control.
Wow.
The machine's waterproof, fireproof, and can withstand thermal radiation, according to the company. It can crawl upstairs.
Wow.
The machine's batteries can last for up to 8 hours. The robot can be equipped with cameras, sensors, and a smoke extracting fan, which is maybe where they got some of those images. I'm not sure.
Mm.
But it's so interesting that that this part of keeping humanity safe and using our intelligence and some artificial intelligence and machines to do the work of the dangerous stuff so that humans can stay safe. I think there's a lot of really interesting corollaries here too.
Yeah.
And not only that, but of course it brings water to this fire. And Dolores has always said, water is liquid consciousness.
Right.
So how interesting is that? That, of course,
On so many levels, it's, yeah.
Exactly. So let's see. Some wonderful quantum healers had things to say about it. Some people, here's another astrology report. So there's a wonderful quantum healer in our community named Heather Holm, and she's quoting the Oracle report. And she said there's one version of this is thinking that it was a sacrifice actually created by the dark side to raise the kind of energy they feed on, which is human anguish or loosh, to tide them over till next year when they know it's going to be game over. Now, isn't that interesting, right?
Well, if that was the case, then I have one thing to say. Fell. You know what I mean?
Right?
Because that didn't work.
I don't think it worked either. Even the staunch Catholics I know weren't terribly bothered.
I imagine if you were right there in the area, it would be a big deal. But, normally those types of things go throughout the whole entire world, and everyone feels it. Like 9/11, it didn't matter if you were in that city or across the country. You felt like you were there, It just really connected us.
Right. Yeah, so some of the other things that are talking about are, then of course there's the shock, horror, and dismay of some of the people who are nearby, or some people who find it relevant in that way. And then of course there's a knee-jerk reaction to blame terrorists, right? I've heard that as well. I didn't feel that. There was no, that if anybody had that in mind, that fizzled out. It hasn't even, come into
What
view.
was the official? They said it was an accident?
It was just an accident, construction accident, which is...
That's what I thought, yeah.
I mean, who even knows, right? But maybe these BQH sessions that I'm getting ready to refer to might talk about it a little bit. So there's a lot of call to rebuild and money donated. And that's an interesting way of looking at this too, right? Because there is no organization on the planet that has more money than the Catholic Church. None.
Right.
Bar none. Nobody. No billionaire personally has as much money as the Catholic Church. And for them to, but what's happening there too, a lot of people are seeing through that. What do you mean? Why do you need any money? How about feeding people who live on the street right next door?
Exactly.
Right? So once again, it's helping more people wake up, right? Yeah, and people are asking things like, why don't you get so upset when forests are cut down? Now you know how the natives feel when their sacred sites are being destroyed. There's another one. But the biggest thing that seems to be coming about in the quantum healing community is this idea of the transformation and cleansing of nasty things that happen in that spot. And I have to, I'm not going to say who wrote this, because she wrote this privately on our community, and she might not have wanted to change.
Attach your name to it?
Yeah. So attach her name to it. Although I wish I would have asked her, because it's so amazing that I actually, gosh, where is it? Come here.
Yeah, speculating's fun.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm sorry. I have to do a lot of scrolling here to find it. Here. Okay. So she says, and this is a good friend of mine, and if you're watching this, you know who you are. Lay claim to this quote, if you will, because I'd love to do that, but not without your permission. I'm not going to say who you are. So she says, when I first saw the flames and then this fire falling, I thought, this is like watching a beautiful woman burned at the stake. And then this rage came through me, and I thought, you, the Catholic Church, burned so many of us, and now you will burn. I felt it was a very strange reaction at the time, but felt every word of it felt true also. The Catholic Church has been responsible for torturing and burning millions of women as witches. Now they burn. And that's an interesting way of looking at it. But again, remember what actually burned. Just that outer thing and the fire, right?
Yeah.
So that reaction, pretty pure to that, not the whole thing down, right? So
exactly.
That's interesting. And then here's a wonderful poem by a brand new quantum healer named Nina Rafaela Morocco. She lives in Scotland, where, by the way, my oldest traceable ancestor with the last name of Craw, so on my father's side, was burned at the stake outside of a Catholic church, and there's a monument to him right there.
Oh my.
Yeah, crazy, huh? It's got,
Yeah.
got his name on there and everything, and that's my oldest relative. I'm not going to remember the date. I should, but anyway, that's in Scotland. So Nina Rafaela Morocco lives in Scotland, and she wrote this poem. I am not sad the beautiful building is burning. I am not sad. The seat of evil is crumbling. The ritual abuse of thousands of our children for hundreds of years is being cleansed. I am not sad. They can hide it all they like. I am not sad. I am not sad. Let's build something new and truly beautiful, not made to house the most corrupt and controlling religion in our Western world, not one that gives the sickest abusers refuge and protection. I'm sorry if it's your salvation, but I am not sad. Out with the old and in with the new. I am not sad.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I was just looking at some images here. I guess more have gotten online. I looked like that first day or whatever, but yeah, and I think that's, we've had our time. I guess there's a time for mourning, and there's a time for celebrating a new chapter,
Yep. So there's a couple more sessions I want to refer to, and then that's about all I have for today, unless you want to chat along some more. But
I think it'd be perfect. We're at 57 minutes, so yeah, let's finish those, and then we'll be good to go.
Okay, great. So this one is just posted. I just saw this a few minutes before coming online with you. It's perfect. Well, actually, maybe a couple hours, but I saw it this morning.
Mm-hmm.
It's called A Crack of Light, The Burning of Notre Dame by Mario Radinger. So he was doing a BQH session, and they were talking about the current state of humanity. And I'm not going to read the whole thing. Well, maybe I could read part of it. When talking to the higher self in a quantum healing session, he said, it's always nice to have the opportunity to receive information about global events. Okay, so he says, what's the current state of humanity? So the higher self, or the subconscious, or the superconscious, whatever you want to term that unity consciousness of us. More and more says, more and more humans feel a sense of longing. They've gone through much darkness and are now saying, even if I need to confront my own pain, I'm ready, because I feel now that I have always been the light. The pain will not last. It will not last. Mario says, it's difficult to maintain that inner knowing while growing up in our society. Higher self says, true, but your current society cannot and will not persist. It's cracking like walls in a giant dark cathedral. Cracks have formed and the light is beginning to penetrate through. And of course, leads him right into this question. On that note, could you explain from your perspective why one of the biggest and most famous cathedrals on our planet has gone up in flames recently? The event was an opening. It's not about the building or the art, which is wonderful. It's about the imprisonment of light. Religion has been locking up the light. She tried to structure it. She tried to form rules and order around it, even the love. There are strict rules when love is love and when it's not, and same with the light. Religion tried to stipulate when light is light and when it's not. The destruction experienced by this cathedral is connected to an explosion of the light. It cannot be imprisoned, neither in a building nor in a belief structure. Mario asks, what kind of effect did this event have on a global scale? It was broadcast all over the planet. Higher self says it sent a shockwave to the core of humanity. Something that had been created as an everlasting monument is not that everlasting. This is shocking, and it's a metaphor. Clinging on to an external belief structure, to religious symbolism, is no longer supported. And I mean, get that again, the external.
External? Yeah, that's what I'm hearing. I'm like, oh my God, there it is again.
Right? Religion offers structure, order, direction, stability, a closeness to divinity, but you can't stop there. In order to develop further, you need to outgrow this framework. Inside of the species, we'll never find this true self. Mario asks, and this threshold has been reached by humanity? Everywhere on this planet, this threshold is reached. As always, development can take place either freely and easily or explosively. There will be more events like this. There will be more explosions. But there would have been other ways. It's not the most healthy way, but it does dissolve the stability of the religions. There you go.
Very nice.
Yeah.
I love that whole burning away of the external, sending us back inward.
Yeah, a cleansing, a real, and that's again, go all the way back to how we started this conversation today. How did you feel when you saw this?
Yeah.
I think a lot of us in this community, in the kind of community that we have, that we talk with others about this kind of work, we were pretty much very even about it. Some of us were a little like, this is what you used to do, some of the female
right.
reaction, a little bit of that. But then a real acceptance and a vision of seeing it as, an opportunity. And then the other...
real quick, before we go to the other one, Dawn had a question. If you knew anything about the individual that looks like he's walking on the inside of it while it's burning, did you hear anything about that, or did you see?
No, I don't know about that one at all.
Okay, I saw it one time, and it looks like, I think he was like up in an upper part. Anyway, he's like walking by, but people think he looks like he's dressed in like Knights Templar garb. So that's interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, do I love that? That wouldn't surprise me at all.
That's interesting, though. Definitely.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, and I will give you the links to these posts, and also this next one I'm going to reference is by my friend Hara Katsiki. She was doing a session, and this came through unexpectedly. She has the audio of this on a YouTube. And then later, when she was like looking at some of this, she shows this news report, and there's this orb flying around that she really wonders about. I've heard nobody comment on that yet.
Wow, no, I didn't notice it.
The orb's really strange because you can, with some orbs out there, they're definitely from the sun, from some, a bright light or whatever. It's a camera artifact. But the camera is stock still, and this orb is doing this over here on the side of it. I'd love to have your opinion of that as well. Okay, so here's hers. Actually, there's another one too. Oh my gosh. This is a short one. My friend Raul down in Mexico. The House of Our Lady, Our Mother, a struggle of energies. This happened in a session. He's getting this information. The fire consumed its antenna, apparently to leave it devoid of connection, but the mother is intact, and the only thing that has happened is those who are on the spiritual path take care of what is happening, and there's attacks on different parts of the world with sacred temples, oratories, and followers. It's only a sign we are making our way. They want to attack the light, but finally the only thing they attempt is against themselves, and it will help make our faith grow. Yeah, so... All right, one more. So here's Haraz. So this was actually on the day where it was happening, I believe, or slightly just thereafter. So Hara Katsiki is having this session, and she asks about the fire. Why is this happening? Why? It's finished, they said. The old is finished. Things are changing. Was it a symbolic event? Yes. It's the heart of France. It's the heart of religion. Notre Dame was symbolizing the heart of the Catholic Church. Yes, it is finished. What is finished exactly? The church. The church is finished. The power that they had, they're losing it? It's finished. And how was this event orchestrated, Hara asks. Not preventable. No one could have stopped it. So it was planned. It had to happen. And from whom was it planned? It's the earth. In what way? And interestingly enough, this is how this session ends. The woman says, I don't know, Hara, I need to wake up now. Which I actually kind of love, because that's how it happens in sessions sometimes. Your mouth is moving, or your client's mouth is moving, and the body, they've had enough, and they're like, it's like, I don't care what church is burning down. I gotta
Right.
wait.
Yeah, that's wild the way that happens. That's why I feel like I'm just kind of along for the ride, because the more I try to control it, the more, they just sort of ignore me at times and still, do what they're supposed to do. And I'm totally cool with that. I want it to be guided. I don't want to get in the way too much.
Yeah.
But it's really neat. It's been really cool.
Yeah.
A lot of fun. And I actually, I had someone else going to the somnambulistic level, and I'm hoping they'll come out with their story. But I was blown away. I think they were blown away. So waiting to do like a debrief type discussion about the whole thing. But it was exciting, and I never could have imagined that this could be so exciting.
This
It really is cool.
so wonderful. I will tell you that reminds me, driving to the studio today to do this show with you. In a recent session I had, there's been more and more appearances of some beings from Andromeda. Now, Andromeda is huge. It's a galaxy. There's like 1 trillion stars in it, so it's
Right.
not a single planet or anything. But something about that area of reality is coming online right now, including in one of my own recent personal sessions. And as I was driving in, I had the real intuition and hit to tell you that, how in that message to you, and I'll send it to you, what Dolores said. I'll send
I
it
appreciate that. Yeah.
text, where she said the beings are at the ready to step in and help you.
Mm-hmm.
The Andromeda beings that made themselves known to me basically stepped in and said, we're standing at the ready to assist Shane as well.
Awesome.
Yeah, so just kind of knowing that, and actually that right there, your response,
Yeah.
that cool response, that's part of the energy signature that they use to connect with you so that you can.
That's super. Yeah, I'm excited. Okay. Never a dull moment in this, I tell you what.
Nope, never a dull moment.
Well, thank you, chat, for being here. Lots of love and light to you guys, and you guys watching later, please do chime in the comments of your initial response as well, just more information, because I think you're right. That first intuitive, just that very first initial thing before you start analyzing it, is important, because that's where the truth lies. I think. Well, thank you so much, Candace, for coming on. Okay, lots of love and light to you and everybody else. Peace, you guys.
Peace, everyone. Bye.
If you'd like to support the work I do, go to paypal.me/UOTF. Thanks.